It's time for the Spurs to finish the puzzle by finding those missing pieces and going all in on a championship run next season. Coming off their best season in nearly a decade, Brian Wright, he's got a job to do. He has a little bit of an easy job by finding those pieces that the Spurs need, plugging them in this roster, and bridging the gap between the Spurs and ending an upcoming 13-year NBA title drought. The draft was already pretty huge for them. They got some big needs there. And now it's time for free agency. I've done this video almost every season since Ty Talk Sports was born, and we're doing it again with 4 players that the Spurs should sign this free agency. Doesn't have to be any major moves for the Spurs this offseason. No huge trade acquisitions should be coming. But as of right now, there's not really much that the Spurs need to do that really dramatically overhauls their roster or does anything that just is adding some sort of other superstar. This is the final bits and pieces. This is the moment where they get over the hump, they get what they need, and then they go all in on a championship. They're not going to have a ton of room to spend this offseason. They are about $28 million underneath that luxury tax and have some room before crossing that first apron. But we're going to be mostly looking at players that they can use on this mid-level exception of about $15 to $20 million and the biannual exception of about $5.5 million. Before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already. Go down below, hit that button, and also turn on the post notification bell so you never miss when I upload a video here at Ty Talk Sports, because that pushes my channel out even further. It lets me reach more and more of you Spurs fans and NBA fans in general. So please, if you haven't already, please go down below, hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me, and it is completely free. But that's all I have to say about that. Without further ado, let's get into 4 players the San Antonio Spurs should sign in free agency. Kicking it off with player number 4, this really depends on what the 3-headed guard trio is going to do. Are De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, and Stephon Castle going to start together, or are they not? And if they don't, it could be worth picking up this guy, and that is Collin Sexton. Now, the Spurs did just draft Jacoby Gillespie, but I doubt he's going to see a lot of time right now, especially as he continues to develop, and they don't want to take a lot of steps away from those 3 by hindering development and trying to focus on someone else. That's why maybe a more experienced guy like Collin Sexton makes sense. And as I was talking about, this really just depends on what's going to happen with that 3-headed guard. Is Dylan Harper going to start? Is he just going to have a bigger role with about maybe 30 minutes a game off the bench? Who knows? But if they choose to add another guard, I think Collin Sexton is a super fun player who kind of fits in this timeline of some experienced guys and just young that can run and gun. Like he's kind of like right in that middle. I think he's 28. He's going to be 28. So he's like right down this line. There's a lot left in the tank with Collin Sexton, but he also has a lot of experience and understands fundamentally how to play the game of basketball, how to take care of the ball, how to get shots with your own creation. Collin Sexton is a fun, explosive guard who can do good things. He does a great job at hunting and identifying mismatches and therefore taking advantage of it. Super crafty, fun scorer who, like I said, is capable of just going to get a bucket in his own way. And that is someone that the Spurs could use off the bench. A bucket getter, especially if Dylan Harper is going to start. He finished the season with averages of 15.4 points on 48.5% from the floor and 41.2% from deep. And he actually took a small leap as a scorer after being traded to Chicago in that deal that sent Kobe White to Charlotte earlier at about the trade deadline. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen between these guards? Because the Spurs last season had just a overloaded guard room, and that's such a good problem to have with Fox, Harper, and Castle. And they're going to have it again because I think all 3 of these guys are going to be better. Yeah, there's been some hard conversations about De'Aaron Fox and how maybe the Spurs need to trade him and pivot towards Dylan Harper as the future. But I think Fox is due for a huge comeback after he's finally going to get healthy, and hopefully he's put in a role to succeed, which is why I think he hasn't been as good as people expected. Obviously, Dylan Harper is going to have a much larger role next season. A lot of fans wanted it sooner than next season, but this kid is going to be a superstar. You want the ball in Dylan Harper's hands. You want him to keep developing. So I think whether or not he's a starter, he's going to play 30 minutes a game or even more. And then Castle is going to get even better after a significant year 2 leap. I think Stephon Castle is going to be an all-star this season. So is it really worth adding another guard to this room? We don't know. The Spurs are probably going to want some sort of insurance at that guard position, and that's maybe someone like a Jordan McLaughlin, but is that really insurance? Really, is it? But do you want to take away any touches from these guys? And if I'm the coach, I don't. But if the Spurs want to use a full MLE on the guard, then I think Collin Sexton is a guy who definitely could fit on this team as someone who is a pure bucket getter, can man the offense off the bench, plays with quick pace that already matches the young energy that this team played with last season and probably will play with next season. But I just think he's someone who could be brought in and immediately feel the vibe of what's going on and get integrated pretty quickly. But they have a luxury at the guard position. So maybe you don't need to do any more. And that is a big reason why that Collin Sexton comes in at player number 4. Coming in at player number 3, this is someone that the Spurs reportedly have their eyes on. He's coming off a pretty significant playoff run, almost historic, and specifically from beyond the arc, and that is Rui Hachimura. Rui is a good player, and he was a big reason why the Lakers got to the second round on such a short-handed roster with no Luka. Reeves missed a couple of those games. But obviously, it wasn't much since they got swept by Oklahoma City. But there's good things that Rui does. He gives you size, and he gives you length. He's going to be an okay defender in the Spurs' defensive scheme, considering what they have already in, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, who's been a good defender, and of course, Victor Wembanyama. He's an efficient scorer, for sure. 51% from the floor last season and 44% from 3. That is lights out, and that is something that the Spurs could use. The Spurs need consistency from deep. Another catch-and-shoot guy. They need someone like Rui Hachimura, and would probably start at that power forward at 6'8" to give some more size up in that starting lineup. But the question is, if he's not hitting his threes, what positive impact does Rui Hachimura bring? And that is why he is at 3rd, because there isn't really a lot more. He's a shooter. He's a catch-and-shoot guy. A bailout option, but that's kind of it. Unfortunately, this isn't somebody who really rebounds the basketball off the charts, doesn't really bring any sort of playmaking feel to the game, isn't the best defender like I mentioned a few minutes ago, and obviously how you could make that work if you're the San Antonio Spurs. Really what I'm saying here is, what does Rui Hachimura do besides catch and shoot the basketball? Like, really, I'm not trying to be mean, but I guess I am, because really, what else does he do besides catch and shoot the basketball? What happens if he's not hitting shots? And like I said, the Spurs need guys like Rui Hachimura because they need more catch-and-shoot threats. Outside of Julian Champagnie and Devin Vassell, they don't really have a lot of catch-and-shoot guys. Stephon Castle slowly progressed in that area. Dylan Harper did as well. De'Aaron Fox is not a catch-and-shoot guy, even though Mitch Johnson is insisting on making De'Aaron Fox a catch-and-shoot guy. Harrison Barnes just re-signed, obviously, as well as Julian Champagnie. So there are some catch-and-shoot guys around, but they weren't as consistent, and Harrison Barnes' minutes kind of diminished in the postseason. The Spurs definitely need a reliable catch-and-shoot guy, and if it turns out to be Rui Hachimura, I'm not going to be mad. I just don't think he's worth a full $15 million mid-level exception. I just don't think that. So I would be more frustrated if they give him $15 million annually, but he's probably going to expect and demand somewhere within that price range. So if the Spurs get him, it's probably going to be at that full MLE tag. If they land him, I hope it's not for the full tag. I don't. But the Spurs have the room. The Julian Champagnie extension is now kicking in. 3 years, $45 million. First of all, unbelievable extension by Brian Wright. That was huge to get Julian Champagnie back. But I would rather that money go to a bigger, more physical power forward. Someone who is more versatile beyond catch and shoot threes. And listen, another shooter doesn't hurt. But I doubt they're going to remain this consistent in pursuing Rui now that they just locked up Julian Champagnie long term. But having those two next to each other could be a pretty deadly combo to improve the floor spacing and probably take a huge leap for the Spurs in the shooting numbers. But that's why he comes in at number 3. Player number 2 is someone who the Spurs actually had on their roster not too long ago. He just declined his $2.8 million player option, so that sets him up for unrestricted free agency. And if you're a Spurs fan, you know who I'm talking about. It's Sandro Mamukelashvili. I loved Mamu in his time as a Spur, one of my personal favorite players. And if the Spurs get him, then I feel like he does everything that I just talked about with Rui Hachimura, specifically in the catch and shoot aspects. He shot 39% from deep last season on 3.7 attempts, so upwards of a 40% three-point shooter, and that's just what the Spurs need, three-point shooting, and you're going to get some size with Mamu, and that's already what Rui Hachimura does. He does that, and he does more. He's going to replicate that same production, and the Spurs can get him for so much cheaper than they could get a Hachimura, and they're going to get so much more production out of him because that's what Mamu does. They both averaged just about 11 points. Rui 11.5, Mamu 11.2, but Mamu is a significantly better rebounder, and he is better as a playmaker than Rui. Now, just like Rui, Mamu is not an exceptional defender, but you're going to expect a respectable effort from him on the floor because that's what he gives you. Effort is a word I'm looking here when I talk about Sandro Mamukelashvili, because this has a motor that you can't teach, and that's what coaches love. Guys who go out there and give it their all without asking, without having to beg them. And Mamu just does that, and it's something you can't teach, and that's why he's so good. That's why he'll probably have a bigger market than he did in free agency last season. He checks in, he knocks down threes, he fights for rebounds, makes some smart passes, he does whatever the team asks, and he does it without question. That was why he became a fan favorite with the San Antonio Spurs a few seasons ago. I wanted them to hold on to him last offseason, but we never knew what was going to happen. He never really had a defined role, and now I believe he can be a solidified backup power forward who comes in and averages 25 minutes a game, and instead of how he used to be, just being a spark plug that came in when things weren't going so well. So like, hey, let's throw in Mamu and see what happens. That's what his role used to be. Now he's become more defined, more of a polished player, and it's someone who can bring you what you need. Three-point shooting, aggressive rebounding, willing to make the extra pass, just smart guys. And something I praised Mamu for during his time with the Spurs was his basketball IQ was off the charts. Every time he was on the floor, he was doing the right things, making the right passes, shooting the right shots. You want guys like that. As I mentioned, he just declined his player option. They might want to sign him for a long-term deal, but the Raptors are also looking at the likes of Kawhi Leonard or something like that. I don't know who that guy is. Heard he's good, but they probably don't want to re-sign Mamu if they bring in this Kawhi Leonard guy. So the Spurs could use some of that MLE or the biannual exception to bring in Mamu for 2 years because his size does give them the ability to start next to Victor, but I doubt that he does. They'll probably just run with Champagnie again. But like I said, 20 to 25 minutes off the bench, and I think bringing him in makes sense considering what the Spurs did in the draft, and specifically with Jaden Quaidance at pick 20. He's been dealing with knee injuries for the last 2 years at college, and he has another surgery to clean up his meniscus later this summer. So who knows how ready he's actually going to be. I think Terrace Reed Jr. is more of a center than a power forward, so why not bring Mamu in while Jaden Quaidance keeps getting healthy? Because when he gets healthy, that's going to be a nightmare for the rest of the league. I'm so excited what JQ's going to be able to do. But why not bring in Mamu while he's rehabbing? Like really, why not? They have the money to do it. Do it. So I've always called Mamu Boris Diaw on steroids. And if you remember, Boris Diaw was a pretty huge addition to the Spurs that helped them get that title in 2014. So maybe a little deja vu here. Go get Boris Diaw 2.0 on steroids and we'll see what happens. But that is why Mamu comes in at player number 2. Last, and certainly not least, player number 1 is someone who I believe truly pushes the Spurs over the hump and fills their biggest need. And it feels like every offseason, this guy always comes up in rumors surrounding the San Antonio Spurs, and that guy is John Collins. All season, people have been saying that the Spurs are a John Collins player away from a championship. Now they have the chance to get him in unrestricted free agency. I would not be mad if the Spurs dangled the entire mid-level exception at Collins, 15 to 20 million, because he's earned it. He is worth that money. And this is someone, if they spend that money on, I would be thrilled. I would be overjoyed if the Spurs land John Collins. If they get him, I would honestly grade the offseason A+. I fully would. Not even close. At 6'9", 226 pounds, he's someone who is just more than a pick and roll lob threat, because that's what he's been known as, and that's what surprises me about his game. He's capable of scoring in isolation, and this is someone who doesn't get tons of credit for his ball handle and ability to score off the dribble. He's a big dude who can go to work. And that's what the Spurs need. A 6'9", 6'10 dude who can go to work with the ball in his hands confidently. There aren't a lot of isolation scorers on this team outside of the guards and Wemby from time to time. Obviously, Fox, Castle, Harper, yes, they are isolation guys. But you need a 6'9 dude who can go get a bucket. And he can. 2 seasons ago, he averaged 1.9 points per possession in isolation sets, and that ranked in the 88th percentile. That's what he can do with the ball in his hands. 88th percentile is nuts. His height gives him some ability to shoot over defenders. He's soft around the rim. He can convert inside. 40.6% from 3 last season on 3.2 attempts. Shot 55% from the floor. 41.7% on catch and shoot threes. We all know what he's capable of as a pick and roll guy and a lob threat. Consistent to knock down a 3. Can get downhill and catch a lob. Basketball IQ to recognize overcommitment defenders, able to navigate cutting lanes and catch lobs inside. And you know what I really like about that is pairing him next to a guy like Stephon Castle, who does so much of his damage in the pick and roll. Getting him a guy like John Collins, that's a match made in heaven. It really is. Now, he did average a career low 5.3 rebounds last season. And this is something that the Spurs would definitely need some more production from, but also they might not because they have a 7'13" dude named Victor Wembanyama. But what's more important to me is the nearly 2 offensive rebounds that Collins averages, because one of the Spurs' biggest Achilles heels all finals was second chance points. They gave up too many to the Knicks, and they didn't respond with the same amount of production. John Collins can fix that. As a defender, is he really going to do anything that blows your mind? No, but this is someone who can play next to Wemby in double big situations and be a fundamentally well defender and match up with taller guys. Because in the Spurs starting lineup, the only guy that was taller than 6'6" was Champagnie, who is 6'7". You need more height in that starting lineup next to Victor Wembanyama. You do. And so the Spurs need to get someone who brings that. I just think that John Collins is the perfect fit on this team. Next to the guards, but more importantly, next to Victor Wembanyama. They've gotten the guards that are the match of the future and the perfect fit for Wemby, and John Collins is the perfect fit next to him at power forward. You run out a lineup of Fox, Harper, Castle, Collins, Wemby. Then off the bench, you got Vassell, Champagnie, Carter Bryant, Harrison Barnes, Luke Cornett, Terrace Reed. Who knows what they're going to do with the point guard situation, but even then, they could just rotate the 3 of them out. John Collins solves so many problems and gives the Spurs so much more depth. And that is why he comes in at number 1, because I believe that the John Collins fit literally pushes the Spurs into that championship bridge, and it's not even close. And that is why I believe that the Spurs should push all their chips on him and go get him as soon as possible. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit that like, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on that post notification bell so you never miss when I upload here on Tide Talk Sports. Who do you guys want the Spurs to sign this offseason? And if you're not a Spurs fan, who's your favorite team and who's your favorite player that you want your team to go sign? This is going to be a wild offseason. It hasn't even started yet, and I can barely keep up. So I'm going to try and do more than just Spurs stuff. Like, I wanted to talk about the Heat, but right now the Kings are doing stuff. Pistons are doing stuff. The Warriors are apparently trying to get LeBron James and AD. There's so much happening right now. It's going to be so much fun, and I'm going to try and just rev up my coverage for not just the Spurs, but for the rest of the NBA. And so, like I said, notification bell on so you never miss a video here. And until next time, this is Tide Talk Sports signing off, and I will see you all next time.